Hello, folks. Welcome back to What Do You Know with Nick and Devin. I'm Nick.
And I'm Devin.
And here we are after what is an exciting two-parter and our first guest. So many firsts.
Yeah, we've been
this
recording
after.
a lot.
Yeah.
And doing a lot of fun new things that'll be coming in, doing it well.
That's what we always say. Basically our tagline.
It's going to be on our first shirt.
Yeah. No, it's been fun. I think that it's fun to start to see a shift in what we're doing or trying different things for not only to kind of switch things up, but also what can the podcast do? You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
I like it. I'm excited.
And that was our first intro take too. So that's pretty great.
Oh yeah. It's all natural now, baby. But anyway, Dev, how are you? What's going on?
I'm good.
Yeah.
It is the dog days of summer. So it's pretty hot. But I can't, I feel kind of bad complaining about the heat of the summer because Hawaii is on fire. A hurricane is hitting California for the first time since in the past 80 years or something like that.
I think 1930 something.
Something like that. So that's just fucked up.
I didn't think hurricanes happened in the Pacific Ocean.
They usually don't. Well, they happen, but they typically don't make landfall. Because the conditions just aren't right to have that storm make landfall.
Right.
Because in the Caribbean, you have all that good juicy stuff to make a hurricane happen. But on the Pacific, it might happen in the middle of the ocean, but it's not going to hit land.
That makes sense.
So now it is, and it's terrifying.
Then they declared a state of emergency.
I mean, they fucking should.
I feel like Florida's haha, your turn. Florida just gets wrecked.
Yeah, well, Florida's dealing with 100-degree ocean water, so it's fine.
And leprosy.
Yeah.
I think we talked about that already. I still think it's hysterical, but not. No one should have leprosy. But also, a disease that I thought was only in the Bible.
Right.
It's now here upon us in land.
Well,
yeah.
Get vaccinated. Trust the medical professionals.
That's our other tagline. Get vaccinated.
That's on the back of the shirt.
Yeah, exactly. What do you call it? Yeah, it's pretty rough. But then we get into fall, and I can't wait for fall because I can be warm and cozy in a sweater.
Are you a pumpkin spice girly or nah?
Nah. But the best part, I think the as we have both worked at Starbucks, I think the best thing is pumpkin spice. Normally people are it's the basic white girl who orders pumpkin spice, which yes, true. Yeah. But also the first people that order pumpkin spice when it's out is older white men.
Yeah.
They're can I get a grande
before anyone else is trying to bust down the doors.
Yeah.
They're I just want to need it once. Just gonna do it once.
And you're I'll see you tomorrow, Fred. Yeah, nice try. But they kind of lower their voice and whisper a bit. I'm oh, did you mean a pumpkin spice latte?
Extra pumpkin?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it's hysterical. And I'm you know what? You live your best life, Fred. Okay.
Right. I never judge anybody for what they order.
No.
I don't care. As long as you're nice, tip well, you're good.
Right. Exactly. I judge a little bit. I'm not gonna lie to you. I definitely do.
I just try not to yuck your yum. And that's so become one of my favorite phrases.
Yuck your yum?
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Oh, well.
If you could not say that around me.
I'm going to say it every time.
Yeah, there it is. I just it's just a weird yuck. I think it's the yeah.
The yeah.
Yeah. Kind of gross.
That's all I'm going to say to you for now.
I hate it so much. Ew. I do love your shirt though.
Thank you.
You want to tell us about it a little bit?
Yeah, so my shirt, it says butt drugs on it. And it is a nice fanciful design. It has a picture of an old soda bar. And butt drugs, while a fun thing to say, and maybe do, depending on your situation,
oh, God.
is actually an old pharmacy in southern Indiana. I don't remember the town off the top of my head, but it's near the tip, close to Kentucky. I know what I said.
Do they
established in 1952?
Do they sell any butt drugs there?
I mean, probably. It's like an active pharmacy. You can send your prescriptions there, pick them up. They have a whole pharmaceutical staff, but then also in the same building, next to all the aisles of other pharmacy needs.
Yeah.
Butt drugs included. They have like this old soda bar where you can get a phosphate soda with like the syrup and everything like that. I also hate calling it soda. I always call it pop.
I think I started that before we started recording this. I was like, tell me about the soda.
Yeah. And then like they make shakes and stuff like that. They obviously sell merch and like other little knickknacks as well.
So you can get a shake, your depositories, and maybe some poppers. Just the full butt drug experience.
It's a one-stop shop.
They really play all angles of their name. And we appreciate that from Southern Indiana.
We love butt drugs.
We love butt drugs. That's the third tagline of the show.
It's on the sleeves.
Right, exactly. That sounds really cool, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like a fun little experience.
Oh, yeah, no. I mean, like, Allie and I went to Kentucky for it was like a delayed honeymoon / anniversary trip.
Cute.
And on our way back up north, we stopped off at this town and had to stop at butt drugs.
You have to stop at butt drugs. Did you do any of the whiskey distilleries and stuff like that?
We went to one that was like both a whiskey and wine place. And it was actually really good.
Nice.
But we were planning on going to a bunch of distilleries, but there was a huge storm like prior to us arriving, and enough where it was like flooding all the fields and like shutting down a bunch of the distilleries because they were all flooded and like having to deal with that. So like we were able to go to a bunch of different wineries. We explored a cave. Allie hated it. I loved it.
Did you like crawl down into it?
No.
Okay.
No. It was like this is a touristy cave. Like there's steps built in, lights built in, stuff like that. No, I wasn't going spelunking. That's horrifying.
Terrifies me.
Those videos are. My feet sweat whenever I watch one of those videos.
It's just like or when they do like the blind ones where they just kind of like go in, they're like, well, I hope, or when they're exploratory, they're like, I hope there's something on the other side, and I'm like,
right.
What are you talking about?
Right, and like they're shimmying, like they only have enough space to like shimmy through, and they're like crawling on their bellies, and like they have to have their head sideways, and they're like, well, I can't turn around, so I either have to shimmy backwards or hope that it opens up.
No.
And it's like you have to go through that twice to get out.
I don't like it. I'm already like super anxious.
My feet are sweating.
Just so you know the conditions in the studio currently.
Yeah,
that's really awful. I don't like this. We should not talk about this anymore. We're gonna talk about my topic now because I'm really actually. I don't like that. Okay. So today is another fun little point in time, which it's a historical event, but one that isn't taught like in America because it doesn't really have to do with America. So
that'll do it.
Not a lot. The best part so I saw a video about this, like a very quick video, and by a quick video, I do mean a TikTok. And so I
assumed.
I like when I tried to like in casual conversation, I always be like, I read an article, and it's like I didn't read an article. Like someone reviewed an article on TikTok. That's what happened.
Oh, it's always like the Reddit title post. It's like, oh yeah,
totally. So I saw the video. I started doing some more like research on it, and so the actual facts of it are pretty like quick and straightforward. But there's one character in it that really stands out to me, and I think he's hysterical because of like what he kind of gets away with politically, and we'll kind of get into it like a little bit, but it is pretty great. So we are gonna talk about the Pastry Wars. Like actually, the Pastry War, I should say, not war. Not the word multiple. Yeah.
Like pastry, like a donut, an eclair.
Yeah.
Cookies.
Yeah,
pastry.
like pastries, like from like a bakery.
Okay.
Or also known as La Guerra de los Pasteles.
Oh.
I know. Because it takes place in Mexico.
I thought it was going to be French.
There is France is involved. Definitely involved. It's actually kind of ridiculous. Like it's not even really a war.
Yeah.
It's more so just a battle that kind of, they call it a war because it was like, it only happened the once kind of. Yeah. And then it spanned over literally from November 1838 to March 1839. Like 5 months.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, we're done.
That's a long time though for like whatever this is.
It's just, it's very quick,
Yeah.
but also kind of funny and like ridiculous all at the same time.
Perfect.
So, I mean, like, people died. So, like, not like ha 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 funny, but like kind of. I think there's enough like time in between now and then where we can kind of be like, that's a little ridiculous.
All right, this
you know
is
what I mean?
way more serious.
Yeah. Like it was a battle. Like the people were fighting. But anyway, so starts in November 1838, and it's the first Franco-Mexican War. So it's the first time that France and Mexico are really kind of going at it, right? Some background into Mexico, just so we have a little bit more context of like what's happening at this period.
Mm-hmm.
So Mexican independence from Spain starts on September 16th, 1810, and goes to 1821. So it's a pretty 11-year war for independence. We also have to remember, we know people think Cinco de Mayo is Mexican independence.
Yeah.
It's not.
Oh.
September 16th is Mexican Independence Day.
So Cinco de Mayo is just for white people to drink margaritas and wear inappropriate sombreros?
That is correct.
Perfect.
And actually get into why Cinco de Mayo is Cinco de Mayo later in the episode.
Oh,
so,
love it.
Look, we can all learn how to appropriate correctly, I guess. What do you call it? So the Federal Constitution of 1824 is established after they gain independence to inaugurate the first Mexican Republic, is what it's called.
Okay.
The Constitution was officially designed by the U.S. So we had a little hand in that.
Yeah, I know. I remember hearing or learning rather that like after our Declaration of Independence and our Constitution came out, people were like, "Yo, U.S., can we copy your notes?"
Truly. Can you pass those back?
Yeah.
It definitely did like stem a lot of inspiration, I guess. Yeah. So strife and political chaos kind of between if Mexico should be a federal or centralist state kind of started happening. So the liberals were more on the federal side and the conservatives more on the centralist side. General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna was the former vice president and then overthrows the sitting president, Valentin Gomez Farias.
Okay.
So that's kind of starts around the time of where we're at. Okay. It establishes the Central Republic of Mexico under the Siete Leyes, or 7 laws, in 1835, repealing the Constitution of 1824. So the Centralist Republic of Mexico would go on to continue to have its own internal struggles with military coups, attempts to institute the new constitutions, things like that. So just kind of giving a little history of from Mexican independence, it wasn't all like hunky-dory and let's build the country. It was kind of this fight over how should the country be established,
right? And
constant like overthrows and coups, and this constitution now take place, and then this, and then this. And so it's kind of crazy.
Well, setting up a new country is never an easy task.
I know, but like we kind of like made it look so easy. You know what I mean? Well, not like easy, but like you get it.
Yeah.
So first it was the first Mexican Republic, and then now it's the Centralist Republic of Mexico.
Okay.
So that's the government to see both the Pastry War and the Mexican-American War.
Ah.
Yes. Okay. So this is kind of situated within that. So at the beginning of the Mexican-American War in 1846, the Centralist Republic of Mexico actually ended. And it started the Second Federal Republic of Mexico and reinstated the Constitution of 1824 with Valentin Gomez Farias as president. So he goes back. So basically we like just abolished the last, 10 years of government.
Scratch it.
We're just going to go back to them.
Didn't really work out.
Right. Thanks for the coups, though.
Thanks for the memes.
Exactly. So underneath the Centralist Republic of Mexico, we have widespread civil and political disorder across Mexico, often leading to looting, damage, destruction of private property, and all of that. And that's kind of where the beginnings of the Pastry War kind of really root itself from, which seems straightforward. Like, of course, like there's damage, there's civil disorder, and all of these things, right?
Right.
So when it occurred, like when damages to private property occurred, citizens would typically claim compensation with the government. So they'd be like, hey, Mexico, my house was burned down.
Yeah.
Can I have some money, please? Because it wasn't my fault. It was actually your military. But there's so much political strife, there's really no representatives to like help the people. Like no one can be like, hey, Representative so-and-so, like go get my money. Right?
Yeah.
So it kind of just kept on, nothing was getting done. It just kind of like flat for everybody. Now the issue is you have foreigners living in Mexico. And so, not the issue, but you also had foreigners living in Mexico. And then they also faced the same obstacles. However, they had a loophole where they could go back and start to appeal to their own governments for help and compensation.
Oh, okay.
So if I'm from the UK and I'm living in Mexico, I could be like, hey, can you hook me up?
Yeah.
And so what happens is we start to see that more and more and more. So where France kind of comes in is France has been in Mexico, especially commercially, since before Spain's recognition of Mexico's independence in 1830.
Okay.
And quickly becomes Mexico's third largest trade partner, aside from the U.S. and the UK.
Yeah.
So not only are they trading, but that's why you have such like foreign citizens coming in, because they want to market and build a business and all these things, right? Makes sense. In 1832, Monsieur Remontel, who is really the catalyst here.
Oh, good.
The impetus, if you will, owns a small French bakery in Tacubaya in Mexico City that is supposedly looted and damaged by Mexican soldiers. That's from the French point of view.
Supposedly.
Correct.
Okay.
From the Mexican point of view, Mexico claims that the officers only simply refused to pay their bill. So either way, not great. But Mexico's like, we didn't damage shit.
Yeah, so the French guy is claiming, be like, they fucked up my shop.
Yeah.
But the Mexican government are like, nah, we didn't pay our bill.
Right, we just didn't pay you.
Like, we didn't pay for our baguettes. Sorry.
Correct.
Okay.
So a little bit of dispute here on the facts. But Monsieur Ramontel kind of tries to apply to the Mexican government to be like, I need compensation for my shop.
Right.
And just like everybody else, they're like, no. And so then he goes to King Louis Philippe, the penultimate king, actually, and of his hardships, and demands 60,000 pesos in reparations for the damage.
Holy shit.
His shop is valued at less than 1,000 pesos.
Yeah, 60,000 is insane.
He's like, you're either going to pay this to me or see what happens. And you know what? We saw what happened. So other complaints start coming into King Louis as well from other French nationals living in Mexico.
Right.
Some to note, like looting of French shops in 1828, execution of a French citizen accused of piracy in 1837. So now people are like, all right. So France is like, stop fucking with my people. You know what I mean? Yes, it's in your own country, but like, stop. Right?
They're still a citizen of my state. Yeah.
Kingdom. All of these complaints built up to, in 1838, Prime Minister Louis Mathieu Mollet. That's how I'm going to say it.
Sounds great.
Thanks. Working on my French with Duolingo. Demands 600,000 pesos or 3 million francs in damages from the Mexican government.
Wow.
So not specifically to Monsieur Remontel, but just in general, we want 600,000 francs. Yeah. Now, that was more than the Mexican military budget.
No.
Like, just an insane amount of money, especially for the time.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like 3 million today, you're like, okay, fine, whatever. But like back then,
in terms of government spending, 3 million's
right.
Like, all right, they could do a lot for the people, but like the government pisses that away on their snack bar.
With the good shit.
Yeah.
So kind of to break it down a little bit further, like a typical daily wage in Mexico City was about a peso a day. Okay. So you would have to work, of course, 600,000 days or 1,649 years.
Easy.
Continuously to pay off this debt.
Jesus.
We love to see it. Uh-huh. So the president of Mexico at the time, Anastasio Bustamante, decided to not make the payment. He's like, no, fuck you. Nah, we're fine. Thanks, though. And so in November of 1838, the King of France sent a fleet and ordered 3 things. Number 1. Thanks. Can you do like the count?
Sure.
Thanks.
For
Go
you.
ahead. Uh-huh.
1.
Yes. Blockade all Mexican ports on the Gulf of Mexico.
2.
Bombard the Mexican fortress of San Juan de Julia in Veracruz.
3.
Seize the city of Veracruz.
3 things. That's the thunder and lightning.
That was perfect. Do you think PBS is going to come after us? Nah, they're fine.
We follow them on Instagram. It's fine.
Do we really?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. All right, so the French fleet was led by Admiral Charles Baudin,
Okay.
who was a highly regarded Napoleonic admiral.
Okay.
So they're like, the best of the best. All right, send them out there. French forces captured Veracruz in December of 1838, so within the month, just quickly captured, to which Mexico declares war on France. So that's why it's called the Pastry War, because like there was a declaration of war.
Right.
So the blockade is a critical hit to Mexico economically, and so smugglers begin smuggling imports through Corpus Christi, which at the time was a part of the Republic of Texas.
Oh.
So remember, Texas isn't like isn't
not
part of the U.S.
full,
yet. Yeah. The Republic of Texas was so nervous that they would be seen as supporting the smugglers and also be blockaded by the French that they kind of rounded up a battalion and to patrol the Corpus Christi Bay area. Because they were like, smugglers are coming through us because they're being blockaded by the French, but if they're just like getting through to no resistance, the French could be like, well, we're going to blockade you now.
So Texas has always been a bitch.
Always been a little fucking bitch. Correct.
Just be cool for once, Texas.
Just like let it happen.
On.
Just let it happen.
So they've always just been doing bullshit with the border.
Well, yeah, and so there's it's not in my notes, but there was I think it's called like Flour Bay or something like that.
Okay.
And the reason that it's called Flour Bay, Flour, is because the battalion, the Texas battalion, had stopped Mexican smugglers from bringing in like flour and basic needs into Mexico. And I was like, well, you're kind of like idealizing.
Right, you're siding with France at this point. France. You're siding with France at this point.
And French.
And the French.
And the French. Yeah, like you're kind of basing it on a state of like neutrality of being like, we don't want to be retaliated against, but like at no point was anyone like, oh.
Right. Well, it's interesting because like during the American Revolution, like France was like, yeah, go America. We fucking hate the Brits. We'll try to help you. And so like but like at this point, Texas isn't part of America at this moment. So like it's interesting to see why they would want to not fully like be on the side of France. Jesus Christ. Fully be on the side of France. But like still be nervous enough about the French.
I think it's also, I mean, we weren't in like the greatest of terms with France because they were like, hey, help us with our revolution. And we're like, nah, we chill.
Right.
After you helped us with yours, we were like, you got it.
Yeah.
You're fine. So I think it was more that. But I'm also like, the Republic of Texas, like, you're fine. Like, no one's coming after you.
Right.
Calm down.
If anyone, Mexico's coming after you.
Truly. And we see that soon enough.
Yeah.
So they kind of helped do that. And then the U.S., actually, because at that point they want to acquire Texas, right? So the U.S. sends down the USS Woodbury to support the blockade of Mexico. So like, well, it's in our interest to side with the French because we want this land from under Mexico.
Right.
You know what I mean? What fun political, conquest. So meanwhile, and this is the guy who I've mentioned already. He's the one that kind of overthrows the initial First Republic of Mexico.
Right.
He was the vice president, and he goes, "Haha, I'm not a liberal anymore. I'm a conservative." Meanwhile, Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna comes out of retirement. So, and we get into. So I have a little bit more background into that because I thought it was great.
Yeah.
He comes out of retirement and surveys the defenses of Veracruz and offers his services to the Mexican government.
For one last job.
To which they order him to fight. And he was like, yeah. So looking into Santa Anna more, he overthrows the government in 1833 and becomes president. And then in 1836, he led a march into Texas to quell rebellion by U.S. settlers. Okay. Right? Because Texas is kind of still part of this battle over, right?
Yeah.
And so, which coincided with Texas declaring its independence from Mexico.
Okay.
So he's like, we're going to go get those settlers. And they're like, we no longer are part of you.
Right.
So then Santa Anna defeats Texan forces at Goliad and the Alamo.
Oh,
remember the
Alamo?
That. To then move east, to move east, where it's ultimately defeated and captured by General Sam Houston.
Oh,
yeah. So now we know where that comes from. Santa Anna then signs a public treaty ending the war and a secret treaty promising to do everything he could to ensure Mexico adhered with the public treaty.
Okay.
So then he sent to go meet with President Andrew Jackson so they could probably like talk things through and be like, all right, what's going on with Texas and blah, blah, blah. But while that's happening and on his way back to Mexico, he's deposed out of government and is just seen as a disgrace because he lost.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, that's kind of the retirement aspect. So he comes back, he's like, I'm going to retire. And everyone's like, we threw you out. Like, okay. So he leads Mexican forces against the French at the Battle of Veracruz and ultimately loses a leg.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Which his leg is buried with full military honors.
Just his leg?
Just his leg.
Huh.
Mm-hmm. What a proud day.
Okay. What a great leg.
I guess. So, which we'll get into what happened to his artificial leg too. So Santa Anna also uses this loss as a way to reclaim political power and jumps back into government as president until driven into exile in 1845.
Okay.
So people were like, "Oh wow, he came to our help and like fought at the Battle of Veracruz, but he still lost at Veracruz, but he lost a leg." And so like huge like PR stunt to like
his sacrifice was so great
right.
for us. Yeah,
you're gonna be president now.
Right, perfect.
Bananas that happened. Until he's driven into exile in 1845, which we'll get into more later. So with Mexico clearly beat and like very much struggling from this blockade,
right.
The UK brokers a peace treaty, and the French withdraw their forces in March 9th, 1839.
Okay.
So again, like 5 months of pseudo fighting, and then they're like, oh, okay. The French lose 8 people. The Mexican military loses a little over 200.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, because this blockade was blocking like everyone from going into Mexico.
Well, all the ports in the Gulf, and so that's huge for them when the U.S., the UK, and France are their 3 biggest traders, countries.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, and the port of Veracruz was really important. Right. It was like their biggest port, and that's why they attacked that area.
Yeah.
You know? And so Mexico agrees to pay the 600,000 pesos to French citizens and the promise of future trade commitments. So like, all right, we'll pay you the 600,000, and then of course we'll still trade with you, right?
Yeah.
So Mexico decided to never pay that debt, which then leads to the second kind of French invasion of sorts or interaction, and it's the Franco-Mexican War of 1861.
Okay.
And so this one, here we see the actual history of Cinco de Mayo.
Oh.
Yeah, because it started in May of 1861. The first battle was May 5th, 1861
Ooh.
in Mexico City.
Okay.
Because they wanted to invade and take over Mexico City. So that first battle is
Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah, and Mexico wins. So it's like the first kind of attempt to overthrow the Mexican government by the French, and the Mexicans win. That's Cinco de Mayo.
That's why we're celebrating it.
Right, and that's why we're like, it's not our independence. It's just like we won a battle, which we eventually like start to lose the war. So, I mean, like we don't. That's the fun part. But anyway, so they never pay their debt, and the French are like, okay, fuck you. We're gonna go to war. The war lasted 6 years with aid from UK and Spain with France, because Spain and the UK were like, you also owe us money.
Yep.
Like, you have to pay us the money that you owe us.
Jesus, yeah.
And so Mexico actually ends up winning with support from the US because of the Monroe Doctrine.
Oh.
Because the Monroe Doctrine is like, we don't want any sort of European interference on this continent.
Yeah.
And so the U.S. Mexico's like, whoa. France is over here.
European alert.
Yeah.
European alert.
Truly. And so the U.S. is like, we got you.
Yeah.
And they did, and they supported.
Wow.
And so Mexico wins the Franco-Mexican War.
Huh.
And it ends in 1867. Yeah. And so Mexican and France actually... So it ends in 1867. In 1870, the monarchy of France kind of dissolves.
Right.
And it becomes like the Second Republic of France, basically. And then Mexico and France don't have diplomatic relations until 1880.
Oh.
So they're like, we need some time to cool off. We'll come back to this.
Yeah.
And also, like, both of our countries are in a little disrepair right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. They'll meet at the convenience store and be like, oh, hey, it's you.
Correct. They like both went for, the cabbage together.
Yeah.
I don't know why I said cabbage. Who reaches for cabbage anymore?
Perfect meet cute situation. Grabbing the cabbage.
That sounds like a euphemism. And I appreciate that. So back to the pastry war. I got so involved in
grabbing cabbage.
So the small battle leaves Mexico hit especially hard with economical between the cost of war and lack of trade revenue. Mexico had to rebuild just 10 years before the Mexican-American War.
Okay.
So the pastry war really just totally shifts them off axis when they were already shaky on a foundation.
Yeah.
So now they're like, we have no trade revenue. We had to put all this money into the war itself and all these things. And France is like, I lost 8 people. We're fine. So the best part is, so again, they have 10 years before the next war that they're involved in, and a much longer war. Santa Anna writes to... So during the Mexican-American War, I'm just bringing Santa Anna back because I think he's hysterical. So remember, he's in retirement. He comes back. He
loses a leg.
He loses the leg. He becomes president again. Then he gets exiled in 1845.
Right.
Okay. So then Santa Anna writes to President Polk when the Mexican-American War breaks out, because right now he's exiled. And the president sends Santa Anna back to Mexico to help keep peace. He's like, yo, I can help. People love me.
Yeah.
Promise.
Yeah.
And Polk's like, yeah, sure, whatever. And so Santa Anna goes back to Mexico and then gains control of the Mexican army and leads it against the U.S. He's like, gotcha.
How does this dude keep coming back and
gotcha, son?
Immediately skyrocketing to the head of whatever he 100%.
Wants. And again, so quickly.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, and then I built my campaign over 5-6 years. It was like, he came back and he's like, can I just have lead? And they're like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, he burst through the door. I'm back, bitches.
Correct. And they're like, oh, not you again.
It's like a bad sitcom.
Truly, can we make this sitcom?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll call it the Pastry War.
Perfect.
So he leads against the U.S. And he fails again. So during his last battle,
not surprised.
Right? Exactly. He wasn't going to win that.
Yeah.
During his last battle, he loses his artificial leg, and it's captured by American troops and sent back to the U.S. as a trophy of war.
That's hilarious.
Do you know where that leg is housed now?
Is it okay? Here's my wild guess.
I'm ready.
Is it holding up the desk in the Oval Office?
How amazing. Could you imagine? The remnants of the Mexican-American War. No, it now sits in the Illinois State Military Museum.
No shit.
Isn't that fucking wild?
Road trip.
I was like, I think we're going to have to do a little TikTok in Springfield, Illinois.
Oh, that's not too bad. That's fun.
I was like, how random? Why Illinois?
Right. That's funny.
I was like, maybe Texas, maybe DC.
I wonder if it was it's maybe deeper research and speculation, but I wonder if it was the battalion that got his leg was from Illinois.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair. Well, yeah, okay, Illinois is a state at that point, not fully ratified, because it's 1818 and then 1868, right?
Sure.
You know what? I watch a lot of Good Wife, and the Illinois seal behind is always 1818 and 1868. Okay, anyway. So it's now in the Illinois State Military Museum, even though Mexico has requested on numerous occasions for it to be sent back.
That's hilarious.
And we're like, now we want it.
Do you think every memo sent between the Mexican government and the U.S. government has a little P.S., can we have the leg back?
And then every letter we send back says P.S., no.
Just
absolutely not.
N-O, period.
There's actually nothing else in the letter. It just says no. So So Santa Anna, going back to him, so he loses his leg,
Right.
And he retires again from 1847 to 1863 in Jamaica and New Granada.
God,
so
I hope he stays there.
Well, in 1864, because remember, 1864 is in the middle of the Franco-Mexican War.
Right.
And so at that time, France was winning, and France had put in place Emperor Maximilian to kind of oversee. They're like, we have Mexico, and Mexico's like, kind of.
Yeah.
So in 1864, he attempts to oust Emperor Maximilian, and seek support from the U.S. So he's like, hey, U.S., I got you. I can get this guy out of here. You don't want any sort of European involvement in this continent.
And the U.S. is like,
let me help your
leg.
Right, like you are of no use to us.
Right.
So at the same time that he sends that letter to the U.S., he also then offers his services to Emperor Maximilian.
What a fuck. Jesus. What a little rat this guy is.
Like, any way that I can get in.
Oh my God.
So both of them refuse him.
Rightfully so.
Right. They're both like, no, we're fine.
No.
And so Santa Anna eventually stays in exile and is allowed to return to Mexico only within the last 2 years of his life after he'd become both poor and blind. They're like, all right, you can come back.
I bet he was grifting though. He was
Totally.
faking being blind
the whole time. He's actually still alive.
Yeah.
He's the current president of Mexico. Yeah, I thought he was honestly like the pastry war is bananas in and of itself. That like one pastry guy was like, you owe me money, and now an entire war has broken out.
Right.
But on the other side, we get introduced to Santa Anna, who is hysterical because his entire life is just like scheming his way through political power.
Yeah.
Which is insane that you can fail that many times and also become the president.
Right. I'd watch a movie about that guy.
I totally watch a movie about that. That's the 4th season of Narcos, actually. They go back. Yeah, this is, that was it. That's the Pastry Wars. And Santa Anna.
Yeah. No, it's wild that essentially one shop owner started a whole multiple year conflict.
Right.
Across with multiple countries.
Not saying that like had this not happened that Mexico wouldn't still be in turmoil as they have all this like kind of political strife.
Yeah.
But this definitely hurt them super economically.
Right.
You know what I mean? But also like pay your debts. Like,
yeah,
come on,
they
bro.
should have obviously been paying, but like, because Mexico at the time was just trying to pick themselves up, so it's like,
right,
we're gonna knock you down and take that. What was it,
600,000 pesos? Yeah,
that's insane.
Well, so like, what I think is crazy is you have in 1810 you have Mexican independence from Spain, right. Then you have about a 20-year-ish period before the Pastry War.
Yeah.
Which then you have the Mexican-American War. Then you have the Franco-Mexican War. Then you have the Mexican Revolution in 1910. So like within a 100-year span, it's just like turmoil after turmoil after turmoil after turmoil.
They never had a chance to catch their breath.
Right.
Yeah.
I was like, you gotta like build and like also like, you know, come together and like how are we gonna do this and all of those things.
Right.
But yeah, it's just bananas to think of like that one is called the Pastry War because it truly started from a single baker who eventually just goes back to France and chills out.
What a dick.
He's like, figure it out.
Right. I started all this. Hee hee.
Right, which I didn't actually look into, but I assume because Mexico won the Franco-Mexican War that they don't have to pay anything. Like, do they still owe France the 600,000 pesos? Do you think they paid that already? Not to like reopen that wound, but like,
I think it would determine the terms. It would be determined by the terms that they ended the war on, if they officially ended the war.
Fair.
Because like they could have been like, okay, we're calling a peace treaty. We're calling a truce. We're going to end the war. These are the terms. We kicked your ass, so we no longer owe you that $600K. All right.
Okay.
Otherwise, we're coming back.
We're coming to you this time.
Yeah.
So wild little fun story that like we don't talk about in the U.S. because it doesn't really have to do with us.
It
doesn't.
But yeah, it does.
Very like small.
Yeah.
It's also a very small, and that's why it's like it is more of like a battle, so to speak, than like a 5-month war.
Yeah. Well, the fact that Mexico lost, what'd you say, 200?
Over 200 men, and France lost 8.
8.
I mean, but also like France is like, yeah, we got boats.
Right, they
and,
have
like,
a very
cannons and
well-established
stuff.
navy.
Right, and Mexico's like, hey, come over here. They're like, okay. So that's the pastry wars.
Wow.
Have fun. We should have had pastries this morning.
I had
I
waffles.
That doesn't count.
No.
I had a scone.
Hey,
Okay.
there we go.
All right, there we go. All right, a little something to tie it all together. You know what
Perfect.
I mean? So yeah, and September 16th is only a few days. Happened just a few days ago. So Mexican independence. Woo, the people. When this comes out,
it will have happened a few.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like,
I'm recording this as if it's the day that this releases. Okay.
yeah. So by the time this comes out, Mexican independence will have like just happened.
Yeah. So now all the people know that Mexican Independence Day is not Cinco de Mayo. It is actually September 16th. And Cinco de Mayo, which is a battle that we won at the beginning of the Franco-Mexican War.
Perfect. That's actually very helpful.
Yeah.
And now I can get plastered on margaritas twice a year.
Yeah. You know what? You can get plastered on margaritas whenever you want.
I do. Don't worry.
Perfect. All right, folks. Well, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for stopping by.
Thanks for
listening,
teaching me
watching.
about the pastry.
Anytime. Both.
Wars.
Pastries and wars.
Yeah.
Folks, you can find us on all of the things, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at @whatdoyouknow_podcast. And on Twitter, it's still going to be Twitter, at WDYK_podcast. Like, subscribe, rate. Let us know what you want to hear about. Do all the things. So we can, ride that algorithm. That's the new ride the wave.
That'll be when you lift up your shirt. It'll say "Ride the algorithm, baby."
On the inside?
Yeah. You lift up your shirt. That's what it
like,
says.
is this their 11th tagline? You're like, yeah, there's more. They're all secret. Secret little hidden pockets. Yeah, that'll be great. Well, thanks, Dev. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Nick.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.